So you want to play a Minecraft server with your friends, but you don't want to have to pay a monthly fee to a server hosting website or try to use Realms. The first thing you're going to want to do is set up port forwarding on the router. Most of the time people put this near the end of the video, but I think it's the most important part of the process, so I want to do it early on. Firstly, we want to get the local IP address of the computer we are using, as well as a few other things that are going to be important for us. To do this, type CMD into the Windows Start menu and open Command Prompt. This will open a black window with some text on it. From there, type in ipconfig. There will now be a list of numbers and words on the screen. We are looking for three things here. The first is the IPv4 address, the second is the default gateway, and the third is the subnet mask. All three of these are going to be important. I'm just going to briefly go over what they are. The IPv4 address is going to be the local IP address of the computer that you're using. In my case, it is 192.168.42.16. The default gateway is your router's IP address. This is what we will use in a few moments when we log into our router through our web browser to set up port forwarding. And the subnet mask is something that's going to be auto-filled, but it's better to just have it right now. Put all of these into a text document, as they will be needed later. Now we will set the static IP address of the computer so that every time it turns on, it should always have the same IP address. First, we need to go to Network and Internet, and then Ethernet, and then change adapter options. Double-click on your primary network driver, then Properties, then double-click on IP Protocol version 4. Under General, click Use the following IP address. Enter in the current IP of the computer, which we found in ipconfig. Doing this will force the computer to always use the same local IP address when it turns on, and then also enter in the default gateway, and the subnet mask should be auto-filled, but if it's not, enter in the same subnet mask that we copied before from the ipconfig. It's important because if the local IP address of the computer changes, you will need to update your server.properties file with your new IP for the computer. Next, we want to log into our router's GUI to make changes to the ports that are open on the router. To do this, enter in the default gateway IP address into your browser. You should then be prompted with a login page. If you don't know the username and password for your router, you should be able to find it on the router's manufacturer website, or you may have to contact your internet service provider to get access to the router. Do note, some ISPs do not allow people to do port forwarding on rented routers, so you'll have to contact them to find out. Once you log into your router, you will need to find where the port forwarding settings are. Almost all routers have the same functionality, just slightly different layouts and naming schemes, so figuring out how to open the port should be pretty easy. Most router manufacturers also have forums where people have probably already asked how to open ports for Minecraft and other games. Another great place for this is going to be on Reddit. There's a lot of good subreddits that will help you with opening ports and changing other settings on your router. Locate the settings to port forward, or in some cases like mine, the NAT settings, or NAT. Now we are going to open up the correct port we need in our router. I'm going to select Create a New Rule. For the name, I usually just enter Minecraft so that I know what the port is being used for. For source and destination port, we can set both of these to the Minecraft default ports, which is 25565. For the most part, you can set the ports to whatever you want, as long as they don't interfere with any already open or used well-known ports that are required for the internet. If you want to know more about this, see the Iana.org port assignments if you wish to use your own ports for Minecraft instead of the default ones. I'll leave a link in the description below. For the destination address, this is going to be the local IP address from the computer we ran ipconfig on. If your router gives you the option to select both UDP and TCP, then select both. If it doesn't allow you to select both at the same time, make sure you create a second rule for whichever protocol you did not select. So now the actual hard stuff is done. The rest of what we're going to do is going to be quite simple. First, we're going to go to Minecraft.net, download the Java Edition server.jar file. I will link this in the description below. Once you have the jar file downloaded, create a new folder on your desktop, then move the downloaded jar file to the folder that you created. Next, we need to make a .bat file, or a batch file, in order to start the Minecraft server. To do this, right-click on any empty space in the folder you made, select New Text Document. Now change the name of this file to Start.bat, remove the .txt at the end of the file. You may have to enable file extensions to change this file to a .bat file. To enable file extensions, click the arrow at the top right of File Explorer, then go View, then check File Name Extensions. Next, go back to the Start.bat file that we created. You'll notice that there's a .txt at the end of it now. Rename the file without the .txt at the end while leaving the .bat. Click Yes on this confirmation window that shows up. Once this bat file is saved, right-click and click Edit on the bat file. This will open the bat file in Notepad. Now we want to copy and paste this information from the Minecraft.net website. It'll have Java and a few other things, but we'll go over that real quick once we actually copy it over. The first thing we want to do is change the Minecraft server.jar file name to server.jar. This will reflect what the actual name of the jar file is in the folder. So the first part of it is going to say Java. Java indicates that we are using Java for this bat file. XMX determines the minimum amount of RAM that the server will always have dedicated to it. I always set this to the same amount of RAM that I set the maximum to, as unused RAM is wasted RAM. Xmx determines the maximum amount of RAM the server can use at any given time. To know what to set this to, find out how much RAM you have in your system. I have 16 GB on this system. I don't want to use all 16 as I won't be able to run anything other than the server. So I will set this to 6 GB to allow enough RAM left over for Minecraft to run, and allow me to use other programs while the server is running as well. In the description below I will have a better guide on setting RAM limits. -jar, server.jar indicates what file the .bat is trying to access and use. NoGUI means that we will not get a GUI that shows how much RAM is being used, players online, or log files showing up in a separate window other than the command prompt window. Do not worry though, as you will be able to see the same logs that you normally can with the GUI turned on. You can turn on the GUI by removing the NoGUI portion of the .bat file. It's entirely up to you if you want to use it or not. I realized that I didn't do a great job explaining what the GUI window actually is, so I figured I would just show you. At the start here we have the same way that we set up the server with the no GUI option enabled. The only thing that shows up is the command prompt window. What I do next is to go to the Start.bat file, remove the no GUI flag, then save the file. Now when I open the Start.bat file, the normal command prompt window opens, but we also get a nice little window that should show us some stats. The main ones to look at are the RAM usage, indicated by the graph and the percentage sign. The other one is the players area. This will show the names of all the players that are on your server. On the right side is essentially the same thing that shows up in the command prompt window. You can even enter in commands just like you would in the command prompt window. So now that we have the Start.bat file set up, we need to run the Start.bat file at least once. Do this by double clicking the Start.bat file. The first time you run the file, you will notice a few new folders and files in the server folder. The file we are looking for is called EULA.txt. Make sure to read through the EULA, then open the text document in your server folders that says EULA.txt. Change the EULA equals false to EULA equals true, then save the file. Run the Start.bat file once again, and this time you should see more logs that are showing up in the command prompt window. Once the server has generated all of the spawn area, it should say done. Technically at this point you can join the server from any local computer, but your friends will not be able to join the server from their computers. As you can see on screen, I'm typing in the local IP address of the computer that I'm trying to connect to. You'll be able to see that I am able to join the server, but this only allows local computers to join the server. It won't allow your friends to join the server at all. To fix this, close the command prompt window by typing stop. This acts as a way of stopping the server and closing it in a safe manner. This is where the port forwarding we did earlier comes into play. Open up the server.property files in your server folder. Scroll down to server IP and enter in your computer's IPv4 address that we found earlier in ipconfig. Mine was 192.168.42.16. Then change the server port to 25565 or whatever port you set as the port you want to use for your server. You can also look through and change settings in this file to your liking. Please see the Minecraft wiki for explanations of what each setting means. Save the file once you've changed all the settings that you want to change. Double click on the Start.bat file again, and the server should start as normal. Once the command prompt window says done again, we want to find what our external IPv4 address is. To do this, go to whatismyip.com and copy the IPv4 address listed there. Be careful who you give this IP address to, as it could lead to somebody trying to perform what is known as a DDoS attack, which essentially makes your internet unusable just until they get bored and stop doing it. Now as you can see in the video, I am entering my IP address into the add server section of Minecraft. Well, you can kind of see it. I also don't want people knowing what my IP address is, so I'm blurring it out. After you type in the IP address and click done, you should now be able to join your server. If you also want your friends to be able to join your server, you will need to give them your IP address. At this point, you don't really need to do anything else. The server is up and running, and your friends should be able to join the server perfectly fine. But I am going to recommend at least two more things. The first is going to be setting up a whitelist on the server, and the second is to make yourself and others operators, or ops for short. A brief explanation of what a whitelist is. Essentially that just means you're only going to allow specific people to join the server if they are on the whitelist. So in this case, their username is in the whitelist. That means they'll be able to join the server. To do this, close the command prompt window by typing stop and open the server.properties file. There are two settings in here that we're going to want to find. The first one is going to be enforce whitelist. Currently this is going to be set to equals false, but we want to change this to equals true. The second setting is going to be called whitelist, and it will also be set to false, and we want to change this to true, and then save the file. Launch the server again by double clicking the Start.bat file. Now try joining your server and you should get an error stating that you are not whitelisted on the server. Take a look at the command prompt window and you should see the same error. To whitelist yourself or other people, simply type whitelist add and then the player name in the command prompt window and press enter. You should get a message stating that the person was added to the whitelist. You should now be able to join your server by simply clicking on the play button. The next thing that we want to do is to make yourself an operator or an op for short. To do this, simply go to the command prompt window, type op space your username or the username of the person who you want to make an operator. You should now be an operator and have access to changing game settings like game mode, time of day, among many other things. Hopefully this video helped you set up a private Minecraft server for you and your friends to play on. I would appreciate a like if this did.